As soon as you wake up, and before you even step out of bed, a part of you puts on a mask. This does not happen on purpose. It is just something you have done so many times that it feels automatic. The way you walk, the voice you use when someone asks if you slept well, and that small smile you wear like a shield. By the time you walk out of your room, you are already acting, and it feels normal until it suddenly doesn't. It lasts until a quiet moment when you see your own reflection and feel a weird distance between the person you seem to be and the person you truly are. That slight feeling of being a stranger to yourself, that quiet sense that things aren't real, was what Carl Jung called the persona. It is the social face you create to survive in the world. It is not something fake, it is a necessary middle ground. It keeps your inner self safe from being seen, judged, or pushed away. But if you live inside that mask for too long, you start to forget that there was ever anything underneath it. We build this persona very early. Children learn that certain feelings get them love, while other feelings result in silence. They learn which parts of themselves are okay to show. A quiet child learns that staying calm gets them praise. A child who speaks their mind learns that being loud leads to trouble. So both of them change themselves, not to be their real selves, but to stay safe. That is where the acting starts. The soul changes its shape just to keep belonging. If this feels familiar to you, please stay with me. Because feeling like you are playing a part is not a failure. It is a sign that your life is trying to find its way back to you. It is your inner mind whispering that you have mistaken fitting in for your actual identity. You see, the persona is like a set of clothes. It is meant to be worn, not to become who you are. But many of us mistake the outfit for our actual skin. We connect so strongly with our image, the one who is capable, the one who is kind, or the one who is funny, that we forget it was once just a choice. You become the person who holds everything together. And then, even when you are falling apart, you act like you are strong. You become the person who listens well, and even when you need someone to listen to you, you stay quiet. You become the person who never complains, and because of that, your pain becomes invisible, even to yourself. This is why sometimes, even when everything in your life seems perfect, it still feels wrong. You have succeeded in keeping the character alive, but you have pushed the actor away. You are surrounded by people who love the version of you they have met, but that version has become your cage. Every time you smile, a little piece of your real self disappears. Jung did not see this as a mental problem, but as a step toward waking up. The moment you start to feel like you aren't real is not a failure of who you are. It is a message from your deeper self. You have grown too big for your mask. People who have outgrown their persona often feel confused. They say things like, "I don't know who I am anymore," or "I feel like I am watching my life happen from the outside." But that feeling of being disconnected is not emptiness. It is the space being cleared out for the truth. When the mask starts to crack, the real face is finally trying to breathe. Still, that is a scary feeling, because the persona kept you safe. It helped you get love, or at least it protected you. And taking it off feels like you are betraying the only version of you that the world has ever accepted. That is why many people run back. They put their makeup back on, fix their smile, and say, "I'm fine." But the inner mind does not forget. Every time you quiet the inner voice that says something is missing, it grows louder in the dark parts of your mind. This is the start of the split that Jung called the divided self. One side of you performs the life everyone sees. The other side watches quietly, feeling like an actor reading lines written by someone else. That is why you might feel disconnected from your own memories, as if they happened to someone standing next to you. The persona lived through them, but the soul only watched. And when that distance gets too wide, you feel the deep ache of not being real. This isn't because you did something wrong, but because you stayed too long in a role that no longer fits you. You have been living in the memory of an old way you used to survive. When you start to feel this, you might notice small rebellions inside yourself. You forget to be perfect. You get tired of trying to please everyone. You start saying things that are only half true. Then you realize those were the most honest words you have said in years. That is your real self returning quietly. That is the moment the actor starts remembering that the script was not the whole story. You might call this a kind of soul sickness, a deep wish for a self you barely remember but have never fully met. You feel it in strange ways, in a loneliness that follows you even when you are with people, in conversations that tire you out because they require a mask you can no longer wear. You feel it in small joys that suddenly feel like they belong to someone else. You begin to ask, who would I be if I stopped acting? That question is both the end and the beginning,
because once you ask it, you can't forget it. Underneath the persona lies the shadow. These are the parts of yourself you learn to hide. They are not evil, they are just ignored. The anger you pushed down to stay likable, the sadness you buried to keep moving, the desires you turned away from to stay pure, they all wait in the dark, tarrying the emotional truth the persona learned to hide. Meeting them is not easy. It feels like facing everything you were taught to stay away from. But that is the strange truth Jung discovered. The only way to stop acting is to include the parts you once threw away. The role goes away when the actor accepts every line, even the ones they tried to cut out of the script. And that is where the deeper journey starts. Not to destroy the persona, but to hold it lightly, like a mask you know you can take off when you are alone. It is about letting your inner and outer lives start talking to each other again. It is about remembering that beneath the performance, there is still a heartbeat, quiet, steady, and waiting to be noticed.
And sometimes, the moment that noticing begins is the moment you finally feel the weight of all the years you spent pretending you didn't need it. You don't lose your persona all at once. It peels off in small moments. The times you are too tired to act excited. The nights when you cry without knowing why. The quiet car rides where you wonder if anyone truly knows you. Those are not breakdowns. They are breakthroughs, disguised as being tired. The mask does not break apart in a dramatic way. It crumbles slowly every time you stop telling automatic truths. But this letting go is tricky. When you have built your whole life around being a certain kind of person, being real can feel like you are losing something. The friendships that did well because you always agreed might start to feel weak. The relationships that depended on you taking care of everyone might start to shake. People may say, "You've changed." And in a way, they are right. You are no longer acting. You are finally showing up to the scene without a script. In your mind, this stage feels like standing between two worlds. The world of the mask still offers safety. The inner world offers meaning. But the bridge between them is thin and foggy. You can't see where it goes. You only know that the old ground no longer feels solid. Here, Jung would say, the mind is looking for wholeness, not perfection. You start to see that the role you played was not a lie. It was an early attempt to be loved. You changed to be loved. You performed too much just to belong. You hid yourself to survive. The mask was not a betrayal, it was protection. But protection has an end date. And when love starts to require you to make your real self disappear, the soul fights back. That fight can look like being burned out, feeling depressed, or having a sudden crisis of meaning. It is your mind's way of saying the story you have been telling no longer fits the truth that is trying to come out. In this phase, many people make the mistake of trying to fix themselves, as if the struggle were a problem instead of an invitation. But Jung would remind us that the goal is not to fix the mask, but to talk with what lies beyond it. This talk starts with being honest, not with the world, but with yourself. When you start saying, "I am not okay," and really mean it, something special happens. You stop acting like the character who has everything figured out and start listening to the person underneath the costume. And that person has been waiting for dozens of years to be heard. You might find that what you thought was a lack of caring is actually deep grief. Grief for the years you spent playing someone else's version of you, for the boundaries you never set because you were afraid of losing love, for the dreams you kept quiet because they didn't fit the role you were given. This is where healing really starts, in the quiet sadness of what your mask cost you. And yet this sadness brings relief, because for the first time, the emotions feel like they belong to you. Even sadness feels more real than a forced smile ever did. Jung believed that being real is born not just from light, but from fully meeting your own darkness. To meet your own shadow is to take back the power that you hid away. When you finally turn toward the parts you left behind, something softens. You realize that your anger was not your enemy. It was your boundary begging to be seen. Your sadness was not a weakness. It was proof of your ability to feel deeply. Your fear was not a failure. It was proof of how much you wanted to stay safe. What you find in yourself stops being a monster when you understand why it is there. The persona always said, "Be good, be liked, be safe." And it did that. But the soul whispers, "Be whole." And being whole includes the parts of you that you tried to hide. This stage is lonely because few people talk about it. You can't easily explain it to others. You say, "I don't feel like myself." But what you really mean is, "I don't feel like the person I pretended to be." You say, "I'm lost." But what you mean is, "I've stopped lying to myself, and now I have to learn who I really am." The more honest you become,
the less acting feels possible. Even small talk starts to feel like too much. You want silence, nature, and being alone, places where no one asks you to play a role. Not because you are leaving life, but because you are cleansing yourself from the act of performing. This is the journey Jung described as individuation. It is the process of becoming the person you were before the world told you who to be. It is not fancy. It is not a self-improvement plan. It is a dismantling, a slow way of remembering your own voice after years of covering it up with other people's approval. Here, the mind and heart often fight. The mind says, if I stop using the mask, I'll lose everything. The heart replies, if I keep it, I'll lose myself. And there is no simple answer. There is only the slow trust that what is real can survive being honest. You begin to live in a different way. You stop saying yes to things that tire you out. You start pausing before you explain yourself. You begin to notice when you are sliding back into a performance, the polite laugh, the forced excitement, and you stop in the middle of a sentence, realizing you don't owe the world a version of you that doesn't exist. That is not being mean. It's your integrity coming back. But it is delicate, this new self. Every truth you take back shows another wound underneath it. You learn that freedom is not found in becoming someone new, but in forgiving the person you had to be to survive. And forgiveness does not happen instantly. It happens slowly. Every time you stop punishing the actor for doing their best with a script they didn't write, the more you forgive your old self, and the more your current self can breathe. You no longer need to prove your value through acting. You start to feel that being seen is not the same as being watched. Being loved is not the same as being admired. Being alive is not the same as being believable.
And in one quiet moment, often when you least expect it, you feel something change. Not a big awakening, just a small stillness. You are not watching your life anymore. You are in it, present, open, and real. And that is when the deeper question comes up. If I am not the role I played, who am I becoming now? That question does not look for an answer. It looks for a life. The process Jung called individuation isn't about finding one final identity. It is about learning to hold all your different selves without needing to act like any of them perfectly. You start noticing that life itself is like a play, but the point was never to leave the stage. It was to know when you are acting and when you are not, to move between roles on purpose rather than by accident, to play without forgetting who is behind the mask. Every time you catch yourself acting, you smile gently, not with shame, but with recognition. You understand now that the mask isn't gone, it is just see-through. It no longer hides you, it serves you. And that small difference changes everything. The persona once owned you, now it is a tool. You wear it when you need to move through the world, but you know where home is. It is in the quiet, unpolished moments where nothing needs to be performed. In laughter that isn't practiced, in tears that come without an apology, in the peace of being seen by someone who isn't watching a role, but meeting a person. You realize that being real doesn't mean showing everything. It means not betraying what you feel. You can still be kind, polite, or professional, but now those actions come from a choice, not from fear. You are no longer acting good to avoid being pushed away. You are speaking the truth because it feels right. This is integration. The moment your inner and outer worlds start to look like each other, you stop splitting into who I am and who I show. You begin to feel your life as one continuous line, not perfectly, but honestly. Yet being whole does not mean being comfortable. It often means being more sensitive. You notice more the fake parts in other people's acting, the small pain behind their smiles. You see the masks everywhere, and instead of judging them, you feel a softness because you remember what it costs to keep yours on. You begin to connect differently. Conversations get deeper. Relationships move from acting to being there. And strangely, you start attracting people who meet you without a mask because being real recognizes itself. It is not that the world changed, it is that you stopped looking at it through a performance. Still, there will be days you forget, days you slide back into the role because old fears still whisper, don't be too much, don't be seen, don't lose love. And on those days, you breathe. And remember, acting is not a failure. It is just a habit of protection. You can put the mask down again when you are ready. This is the lifelong dance Jung described, between the persona and the soul, between the mask and the truth. You never fully arrive at the end. You just become better at being yourself. You learn the quiet language of your own honesty, the tone, the feeling, the quiet yes and the honest no. And you begin to trust that the self beneath the role was never lost, only waiting for your permission to exist.
The more you live this way, the less you want to be perfect. You understand that who you are is not a destination, but a relationship between who you've been, who you're becoming, and the steady awareness watching it all happen. You stop trying to be someone. You start allowing yourself to be. And perhaps that is what Jung meant when he said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Because becoming yourself is not something you achieve. It is a surrender, a return, and a gentle remembering that you were never just the role, never just the mask, and never just the image people saw. You were the awareness behind it all. The consciousness quietly watching every performance, waiting patiently for you to look back and say, I see you. And in that seeing, something eternal starts to move. Not an ending, but just the quiet knowledge that the story is not over, and maybe it was never meant to be.